Hey everyone, welcome to the Peace Among Friends podcast. On Tuesdays, we talk about different psychoeducation and skill building types of topics, and on Thursdays, we do meditations. Today is Tuesday, so we are doing our skill building topics, and there is an absolutely insane thunderstorm going on outside right now. So I do apologize for any crazy sounds you might hear. The rain is a nice little ambiance though, so we're just going to go with it. And today, our topic that we're going to be going over is depression. So, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what depression is, and then we're going to go over some things to do if you're currently in like an episode of depression. And I will go ahead and say that we will be talking about certain things. So, just a trigger warning if suicide ideation is triggering for you, we will briefly be talking about that. Nothing graphic, no details, nothing like that is going to be discussed, but just the fact that it is a thing in the world will be brought up when we're talking about symptoms of depression. If you do feel like your symptoms are, getting worse and you really need some help, I definitely recommend going to see a therapist. This podcast is not meant to replace therapy. And if you are in a crisis situation, definitely call 911 and get some help immediately because it's important to take care of yourself, and that is the number one goal that we have in this podcast, is to take care of ourselves and make sure that we're doing the best that we possibly can for ourselves. So again, if you're not in a crisis situation and you just would like to learn a few things that you can do to help cope with your depression, or if you're currently in therapy and are looking for some extra supplemental types of resources to have in between therapy sessions, that's mainly what we're going to be going over today. And again, if you are in a situation where you feel like things are getting a lot harder and if you're not really seeing any kind of improvement, I would definitely recommend trying to reach out to a therapist, go see someone, and get that face-to-face help, because there's really nothing like having, a therapist there to be in front of you that you can talk to, and someone who is, competent in your area that you're struggling in. So, I just want to make that perfectly clear that this is not therapy. This is just, a talk about depression. And depression's something that I know very well. I've learned a lot about it, but I've also experienced it the majority of my life. I've always had to struggle with depression, and it's a lot. It's really a lot. So, to get started, let's kind of talk about what is depression. So, they would call it like a depressive episode is whenever you're currently and actively having depressive symptoms. Some of those symptoms can be a depressed mood. You might have some problems sleeping. You could notice a loss of interest or enjoyment in things that you're typically happy about doing. You might notice yourself being more tired than normal. You start to feel fatigue every day. You might have some significant weight changes. It could be weight gain or weight loss. And you would have some feelings of worthlessness, possibly feelings of hopelessness. You would have a diminished ability to concentrate. So you might notice, you're not really able to keep your mind on a specific topic. You might notice that you're having some trouble focusing on things. And the last one would be reoccurring thoughts of death. So that could be suicidal ideation. And again, if you're having those types of thoughts, I would definitely recommend reaching out to a therapist and starting to work with a mental health professional who is trained and knows how to help you with what you're struggling with, because we do want you to stay safe. So whenever you're experiencing those, list of symptoms that we talked about, like the depressed mood, sleep difficulty, loss of interest, fatigue, those symptoms, if they're causing you significant distress and are lasting for longer 2 weeks, then we would say that you are currently in a depressive episode. So some demographic information is women are twice as likely to develop depression. About 1 in 10 people in their lives will experience depression. And that is just wild to me because, like, as someone who's dealt with depression my whole life, I'm just like, there's people out there who don't deal with depression. Like, are you kidding? I would love to meet them. Wow. And, it's baffling to even think about what life would be like without having that be a thing. And, ooh, it's intense. But, also most people will experience their first depressive episode between the ages of 20 and 30. So if you are in that kind of age range and you're experiencing it for the first time, it might be kind of scary. It might be just alarming in general. You're probably like, what is going on? Why don't I feel like I normally do? And again, that's a good time to, try to reach out and get some help, because if you do start working with a therapist or a psychiatrist, they're able to, prescribe medication that can help as well. Generally, what's given is something called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and the short name for that is SSRI. And so that is a medication that helps to increase the level of serotonin in the brain, and that's a chemical that's related to depression, and it, helps to make you happy. And studies show that SSRIs are the most effective treatment of depression, but they don't exactly work overnight. Sometimes it can take up to 6 weeks before they actually start taking full effect. So if you, have been recently going to see a therapist and you're taking your medication, it might not, kick in right away. So don't give up, give it that, at least that full 6 weeks to see if there's any kind of change that starts happening, and make sure that you're talking to a mental health professional the whole time. Let them know exactly what you're feeling on that medication. I've had a lot of clients that, have a lot of issues with their medicines, and they don't really feel like they can talk to their psychiatrist about that, but, that's who you're supposed to talk to. They have the best info. So, especially if you're paying them, tell them what's going on. They're working for you. So, make sure that you're giving them all the information so that way they can help you. And whenever you're also working with a therapist, generally the type of therapy that's used is cognitive behavioral therapy. So that is working on, helping to change self-defeating thoughts, self-defeating kinds of behaviors, maybe some negative behaviors that can come from depression. And it's been found to be, absolutely incredible in helping people with depression. Like, CBT is one of the top standards. And, the best kind of combo that you can do is be doing the CBT and the medication. That is generally what's going to help you the most and see the most results. So I have some other little facts listed, just generally about depression. So over half of the people diagnosed with depression also suffer from anxiety. So if you're suffering from depression, there's a 50-50 chance that you also have anxiety. And I have anxiety as well. So, so if that's something that you're dealing with, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. Also, physical exercise has actually been found to be very helpful in reducing depression and has almost what's seen as an antidepressant effect. So, if you're looking into getting into a good exercise routine, how they said in Legally Blonde, endorphins make you happy. And it is true. It kind of helps with that serotonin boost going on in your brain. So next, what we're going to talk about is some healthy versus unhealthy coping strategies. So when I say coping strategies, what I mean is these are actions that we can take, and they help us to deal with stress, deal with problems, uncomfortable emotions. And unhealthy coping strategies tend to feel good in the moment, but can have some negative long-term consequences. And healthy coping strategies may not always provide, that instant gratification you might be looking for, but they generally are going to lead to long-lasting positive changes. So, like, an example of unhealthy coping strategy would be like drugs, alcohol, overeating, sleeping too much or too little, maybe withdrawing socially, self-harm, anything that's kind of in that realm of self-destruction. Those are going to be the things that might make you feel better in the moment, but long term, they're just going to keep bringing you down. They're not going to really help with the problem. They're just going to kind of make it worse. Like almost every one of those things have like very negative health outcomes with them. So what's important is to look at some healthier versions of coping. So again, these are actions that we're taking to help deal with stress, problems, and uncomfortable emotions. So some better examples would be like how we talked about exercise, or talking about what is the problem, especially if you're talking to a mental health professional. Some other things could be like doing some relaxation techniques like deep breathing. Grounding techniques are really helpful. I have a whole video on grounding techniques and a meditation where I go through 3 different ones that you can do anytime that you're starting to feel stressed. It's kind of little things just like that can help you kind of stay in the moment and get out of your head a little bit. So also social support is so important, making sure that you have support around you and that you feel like there's people that you can go to and talk to, because silence can be something that's detrimental whenever you have depression. It really makes, depression makes you want to kind of withdraw into yourself, and you kind of have this feeling, and you might be talking to yourself saying like, no, I don't want to reach out, I want to just stay in this closed off little world. But that's just gonna lead to more problems, and that's not what we want for you, and that's not what you should want for yourself. Again, we got to take care of ourselves. We got to take care of ourselves. That's so important. Some days are going to be harder than others, but sometimes you just have to put that foot out, and take a step forward, and don't think about the step after that, the step after that. Just take that first step and just go from there. Just brush your teeth. Like sometimes that can be the hardest thing in the morning. Like if you're really in a depressive episode, sometimes your self-care is the first thing to go, and that's what we would call a warning sign. So, if you're noticing like, I don't even have the energy to brush my teeth right now, I don't want to brush my hair, I don't even want to look in the mirror, I don't care, by just taking that first step of like, okay, I'm just going to brush my teeth. Okay. And then, try to take a shower. Try to do just some of those basic things to take care of yourself, and it will start to help. It will start to help your depression. I know sometimes those little things can seem like just the whole weight of the world is on top of you to do them. But if you just take that first step, it will help. And next, we're going to look at some other kinds of coping skills that you can do. So generally when you're in depressive episodes, it saps your energy. Like all of your energy will start to just dwindle away, and just nothing seems fun. Like a movie that you normally would love, that you'd watch, just absolutely blank face, blank stare, don't care. And as a result, people with depression tend to become less active. So that can actually make your depression worse. But whenever you do a little bit of action, it can actually help to stop the cycle. So we're going to look at 5 different categories. And whenever you're depressed, try to pick like just one category, just one thing from one category. And that way you'll have some options. Because like I said, sometimes, whenever you're depressed, some things are just no longer interesting to you. So if you have like your normal coping skill is like going to exercise, well, if you're on a really depressed day, sometimes that's not going to happen. It's just not. Or if your coping skill is like painting or art or something like that, some days you're just not going to be feeling it. So you want to have options. They say you should have a coping skill for like one skill for every year of your life. So, if you're 30, you want to have 30 coping skills that you can pick from on a list, because that's going to give you options for whenever you're in that episode and you're really not feeling anything. It'll, give you something to pick from. So our 5 categories are exercise, socialize, responsibilities, hobbies, and personal care. So under exercise, that could be like walk, go for a bike ride, do an exercise video, swim, practice some yoga, dancing. Dancing's really great. I've had a lot of clients who that was like their go-to thing. If they were really not feeling it, they would put on some music, some of their favorite songs, some just like go-to happy songs that they had, and they would just dance around the room. And I had one client who told me like we had talked about that being their coping skill, and they went to do it, and they said like through the whole first song they had like such a frown on their face and they were just so unhappy, but they did it, they were doing it. And then a couple more songs came on, and by like the third or fourth one, they were just dancing around the room, and they said they were having such a good time. And it was just a really nice day for them. And just even hearing that story like warmed my heart. It's just, sometimes we can get so stuck in that first step of just like, I don't care. I just don't care. But then whenever that serotonin starts to, kick in, it can kind of help. And then you start to feel that mood change, and it's like, I don't feel like, this crippling depression anymore. And that's the moment we're looking for. And we're looking at getting in a healthy way. So that next category would be socialize. That could be call, text a friend, make some plans. Sometimes that can be good too, just to have something to look forward to. Try to, visit a friend if you can. I know, like with the COVID and everything, the world's crazy. But I mean, even just a FaceTime call, something, go try to find like a new club or group or something online, even if you can. But just try to do something to where you're reaching out to a person, preferably not a toxic person. So, like, if you're in a depressive episode and like you have this friend that every time you talk to them you get upset, like maybe not that friend. maybe don't reach out to that friend this week. Maybe, reach out to one of your friends that is like always got your back, one of your go-to. So then the next one would be responsibilities. So in this category, we're looking at like cleaning, housework, paying bills, homework, professional development. So, typically what we'd say like is the boring stuff, but sometimes when you're depressed, things can start to pile up because you feel like just so motionless. Sometimes days can go by and you're like, oh no, there's like 5 things I know I have to do today. And sometimes that anxiety can start to build on the depression and it can make it worse. So if you can just get like one of those things done and just like knock it out, then your serotonin can start to go back up. And then you can have that feeling of like, okay, I at least got one thing done. Now I can chill for a little bit. And then it can kind of help that anxiety and depression go down a bit. So the next category is hobbies. So these could be things like sports, maybe gardening, drawing, playing music, hiking. If you have a pet, just hanging out with your pet, maybe cooking, especially like healthy cooking. Anything like that, anything that is creative or just something that allows you to kind of use your mind. It can be very helpful, especially if you're in that, very depressed state, just by doing something, especially if it's active, can really help, it can help you to cope. So then the last one would be the category of personal care. So that could be, get dressed up, get a haircut, prepare a healthy meal, tend to your spiritual needs, whatever they might be. Brush your teeth. Sometimes that is the bare minimum we can do that day. And, just get that done and go from there. So I know, like, depression sucks. And we don't always want to do some things because we're depressed. And what is one of the key features of depression? A loss of interest. So whenever you're doing these kind of, pick a category, pick something from the category to do, remember just to start small. If you need it, break an activity into smaller pieces. Even if it's brushing your teeth, start by just putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush, put the toothbrush down, and then go do what you were doing again. Like if you're laying down, just go lay down. If you got that far, and then next, work on getting the toothbrush in the mouth. Baby steps. You just got to work with yourself. And some activity is better than no activity. I don't care if it takes you an hour to get your teeth brushed. You did it. You did it. And that's that serotonin boost that you'll have afterwards. And you can give yourself a pat on the back and say, yes, I did it today. So another thing that can help is to make a plan. If you need to set an alarm as a reminder or tie an activity into something you already do. So like if you're used to having like, I always eat dinner at 7 o'clock, then, tie in like, I'll do my painting or like I'll draw a picture after I eat dinner or before I, go to work during the day, I'm going to do a meditation beforehand. That can kind of help you be a little bit more proactive and can start putting some of those hobbies into your daily routine. So then if you do have a depressive episode, you already have some safety nets built into your day. So that can kind of help you cope. So lastly, what we're going to do is our weekly challenge section. So last week we talked about anger management, and we learned that all anger has roots in fear and pain. And we challenged ourselves to try to think about some of those roots. So whenever we got angry during the week, we wanted to think, okay, what is the root of this? Is it fear? Is it pain? What is the fear? What is the pain? So this last week, I got very angry because I've been working out and I've been really trying to take better care of myself, and I have not lost any weight. And I got really angry. I got real angry. I was very upset with myself. A lot of times when I get angry, I get mad at myself. I tend to blame myself for everything. So I had to take a second and step backwards and, think to myself, okay, what is it fear? Is it pain? What is it? And I think it was a good bit of fear of worrying that, I'm going to give up, that I'm not going to keep going, and, just pain in the past because I, dealt with a lot of bullying and everything being a kid. So there was a lot of both of those that I had to process through, and just, kind of being cognizant of it and, telling myself, okay, this is why you're mad. It helped me to understand at least why I was mad. And, now I'm looking more at, setting fitness goals instead of weight loss goals, because that's something I can do that I have a little bit more, control over and can be a little bit more excited about. So that's just one thing I did to try to help. And so for this week, our challenge is going to be to come up with a new coping strategy. If you want to do more than one, that's great, but just try with one. So this week, just try to find one new thing that can help you cope with stress or uncomfortable emotions. And if you're in the middle of a depressive episode, I would definitely recommend doing this and just trying out something new. And, I'll come back and talk about what my thing is next week. And if you'd like to leave your responses in the comment section below, I would love to hear from you. And I would just like to say thank you so much for being here. I congratulate you on taking this time to work on yourself and try to understand what's going on with yourself, especially if you're in a depressive episode. I really congratulate you, because it's really hard to do things when you're depressed. So right now I would like you to just give yourself a big old pat on the back. Just give yourself a big pat on the back, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-love to work on your mental health. And again, I do just want to thank you and congratulate you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next week.